The Manhattan penthouse gleamed like a jewel against the night sky, its floor-to-ceiling windows reflecting the city's endless lights. Inside, luxury wrapped around every corner. Italian marble, crystal chandeliers, art worth more than most people would earn in a lifetime. Yet in the nursery on the third floor, none of that splendor could silence the piercing cries of a 3-day-old baby girl. Marcus Ashford stood in the doorway of the nursery, his jaw tight with frustration. At 37, he had built an empire from nothing, commanded boardrooms full of powerful men, negotiated billion-dollar deals with unwavering confidence. But this tiny human, his daughter, reduced him to complete helplessness. "She's been crying for 4 hours straight," the night nurse said, her voice strained with exhaustion. "I've tried everything, Mr. Ashford. Feeding, changing, swaddling, music, movement. Nothing works." Marcus watched as the highly recommended pediatric nurse bounced his daughter gently, her movements practiced and professional. The baby's face was red, contorted in distress, her small fists clenched as she wailed with a force that seemed impossible for someone so small. "This is the third nurse this week," his wife Vivian said from behind him, her tone sharp with irritation. She stood in an elegant silk robe, her blonde hair perfectly styled even at 2 in the morning. "Clearly, none of them are competent enough. Mrs. Ashford, I assure you, I have 15 years of experience with newborns." "Then why is she still crying?" Vivian snapped. "We're paying you a fortune, and you can't even handle a simple infant." Marcus noticed how his wife maintained her distance from the nursery, always hovering near the door, never reaching for the baby herself. In 3 days, he couldn't recall seeing Vivian hold their daughter for more than a few moments. When he'd mentioned it, she'd claimed exhaustion from the delivery, said she needed time to recover. He'd accepted it then, but now doubt gnawed at him. "Perhaps if you held her, Mrs. Ashford," the nurse suggested carefully. "Sometimes babies just need their mother's touch." Vivian's face tightened almost imperceptibly. "I told you, I'm still recovering. The doctors said I need rest. That's what we hired you for." The baby's cries intensified, filling the room with desperate, heartbreaking sound. Marcus felt something twist in his chest. This was his child, his daughter, and he couldn't comfort her. Neither could anyone else they'd hired. "Mr. Ashford." A soft voice came from the hallway. "I'm sorry to interrupt." He turned to see Sarah, the household maid, standing hesitantly at the edge of the room. She was 28, with warm brown skin and gentle eyes that always seemed kind. She'd worked for them for 2 years, quiet and efficient, nearly invisible in the way Vivian preferred her staff to be. "What is it?" Marcus asked, hearing the exhaustion in his own voice. "I've finished the laundry and prepared tomorrow's breakfast items. I was wondering." She glanced at the crying baby, and something flickered across her face, something that looked like physical pain. "Would you like me to stay? In case you need anything?" "I don't mind. I could help with." "We don't need the maid's help with our child," Vivian said coldly. "Go to your quarters, Sarah." But the baby's cries had changed the moment Sarah spoke. Marcus noticed it immediately. The pitch had shifted. The desperation seemed to ease just slightly. The baby's head turned, almost as if seeking the source of that voice. "Wait," Marcus said. He looked at the nurse, then at the screaming infant. "Has anyone else tried holding her? Someone not in a medical uniform?" "Sir, I really don't think," Vivian began. "Sarah, would you come here, please?" Sarah's eyes widened. She looked at Vivian, whose face had gone pale, then back at Marcus. Slowly, she stepped into the nursery. I've never held a baby before, Mr. Ashford. I wouldn't know." "None of us seem to know anything when it comes to this child," Marcus said, a bitter edge to his voice. At this point, I'm willing to try anything. The nurse looked skeptical, but handed the baby over carefully. Sarah's hands trembled as she received the small bundle, her arms instinctively positioning in a way that seemed natural despite her claimed inexperience. What happened next made everyone in the room freeze. The baby's cries stopped. Not gradually, not slowly, they ceased almost instantly. The infant's tiny body, which had been rigid with distress, melted into Sarah's arms. Her small fists unclenched. Her red face began to calm. And then, impossible as it seemed, the baby's eyes began to flutter closed. Sarah looked down at the child, and tears immediately filled her eyes. Her whole body began to tremble. Sarah's voice broke. She stopped crying. Marcus stared in disbelief. The nurse's mouth had fallen open. But it was Vivian's reaction that struck him most. She had gone completely white, her hands gripping the doorframe as if she might collapse. "This is unprecedented," the nurse whispered. "I've never seen anything like this." Sarah was crying openly now, tears streaming down her face as she gazed at the baby in her arms. The infant had settled completely, her small body rising and falling with peaceful breaths, one tiny hand wrapped around Sarah's finger with surprising strength. "Why are you crying?" Marcus asked, watching Sarah carefully. "I'm sorry, sir. I don't know. Sarah's voice shook. "She's so beautiful. So perfect. I can't imagine how anyone could bear to hear her cry like that. It's like it broke something in my chest." Vivian's voice cut through the moment like ice. "That's quite enough emotion from the help. You can go now, Sarah. The baby is calm. We'll take it from here." But when the nurse tried to take the baby back, the infant immediately began to whimper. The moment Sarah's arms tightened protectively around her, she settled again. "No," Marcus said firmly. "Sarah stays. If she's the only one who can calm my daughter, then she stays." "Marcus, this is absurd," Vivian began. "Is it?" He turned to his wife, really looking at her for the first time in days. "Our daughter has cried nonstop for 3 days. 3 different nurses, all highly qualified, and none of them could help her. You won't even hold her. And now a maid picks her up and she stops crying immediately. How do you explain that, Vivian?" Vivian's composure cracked for just a moment. Marcus saw fear flash across her face before she masked it with indignation. "I don't have to explain anything. I just gave birth. I'm exhausted. And I won't be questioned like this in my own home." She turned and left, her footsteps sharp against the marble floor. Marcus looked back at Sarah, who was swaying gently with the baby, humming something soft and wordless. The infant slept peacefully, her small face serene in a way he hadn't seen since they'd brought her home from the hospital. "Sarah," he said quietly, "I need you to stay with her tonight. The nurse will be here too, but I need someone who can actually calm her down." Sarah looked up, her eyes still wet. "Mr. Ashford, I'm not qualified. You're the only person who can help my daughter," he said. "Please." She nodded slowly, looking back down at the sleeping infant. "Yes, sir. Of course." As Marcus left the nursery, he glanced back one more time. Sarah had settled into the rocking chair, the baby cradled against her chest, and she was whispering something he couldn't quite hear. But the expression on her face, pure love mixed with devastating grief, stayed with him all the way to his bedroom. Something wasn't right. He could feel it in his bones, the same instinct that had guided him through countless business dealings. Something about his wife's reaction, about this impossible bond between his daughter and their maid. He would find out what it was. He had to, because the way that baby clung to Sarah, the way she only found peace in those particular arms, It looked less like preference and more like recognition. And that should have been impossible. The morning sun streamed through the penthouse windows, but Vivian Ashford felt no warmth from it. She sat at her vanity, applying her makeup with mechanical precision, her hands steady despite the panic churning in her stomach. 3 days. She'd managed to keep up the charade for only 3 days. Behind her, she could hear sounds from the nursery, soft cooing, gentle laughter. Sarah's voice, warm and musical, singing something to the baby. Vivian's jaw clenched. She grabbed her foundation and began applying it with harder strokes than necessary. This wasn't how it was supposed to go. Mrs. Ashford? Her personal assistant, Jennifer, appeared in the doorway. The photographer is here for the newborn session. Shall I tell him to set up in the living room? Vivian's stomach dropped. She'd forgotten about the photo session, arranged weeks ago to capture perfect images of the Ashford heir for the birth announcement in all the society papers. Yes, she said, her voice tight. Give me 15 minutes. After Jennifer left, Vivian stared at her reflection. She looked the part, expensive highlights, expertly applied makeup, designer clothing that tastefully hid the fact that she hadn't actually given birth 3 days ago. No one would suspect. No one could know. Her mind drifted back to 6 weeks ago, to the moment everything had fallen apart. She'd been 8 months pregnant, Marcus away on an extended business trip in Singapore. The pregnancy had been unexpected. She'd never particularly wanted children, but Marcus had been insistent, and a baby would secure her position, her future, her access to the Ashford fortune. But then there had been the party. She closed her eyes against the memory. Too much champagne, too much cocaine. She'd thought one night of indulgence wouldn't matter. The baby was almost full term. What harm could it do? The cramping had started at 3 in the morning. By dawn, she was hemorrhaging. Her private doctor, bound by confidentiality and generous payments, had tried everything. But the baby was gone. The miscarriage had been devastating, not because she'd wanted the child, but because she knew what it meant. Marcus would leave her. The prenup was ironclad. If she couldn't give him an heir, she'd get almost nothing in a divorce. Everything she'd worked for, the lifestyle she'd built, would disappear. She'd been lying in her bedroom, destroyed by panic, when she'd heard it, a baby crying from the servants' quarters. Sarah had been 8 months pregnant too. Vivian had barely noticed. She'd mandated that Sarah wear loose clothing and work until the very end. Staff pregnancies were inconvenient, and Vivian had planned to terminate Sarah's employment as soon as she gave birth. But hearing that cry, Vivian had seen a different solution. It had been so easy, really. Sarah was alone, vulnerable, an immigrant who'd come to America on a work visa that Vivian sponsored. She had no family here, no support system. No one who would fight for her. Vivian had gone to Sarah's small room in the basement that same night, just hours after the girl had given birth alone, too afraid to ask for help or time off. "Give me your baby," Vivian had said simply. Sarah's face had drained of color. "Mrs. Ashford, I don't understand. Your baby. I need her." Vivian's voice had been steel. "My child didn't survive. But Marcus can never know. He's returning in 2 days, and he's expecting to meet his daughter." "No." Sarah had clutched the newborn to her chest, backing away. "No, please. She's mine. She's all I have." "You have nothing," Vivian had corrected coldly. "You have what I allow you to have. Your visa, your job, your freedom to stay in this country. All of that belongs to me." She'd watched Sarah's face crumble, watched the understanding sink in. "If you refuse, I'll call immigration tonight," Vivian had continued. "I'll tell them you stole from us, that you're here illegally, that you're unfit. They'll deport you, and they'll put your baby in the system. You'll never see her again. Please, Sarah had begged, tears streaming down her face. Please don't do this. She's my daughter. I'll die without her. Please. Or, Vivian had said, you stay. You keep your job, your visa, your place here. And you get to see your daughter every single day. You can watch her grow up, be near her, make sure she's cared for. But you can never tell anyone the truth. Never. Sarah had sobbed then, broken and desperate. I can't. I carried her for 9 months. She's part of me. And now she's part of my family. You have 5 minutes to decide, Sarah. Give her to me willingly, or lose her forever. In the end, Sarah had agreed. What choice did she have? Vivian had taken the 2-day-old baby, still unnamed, and claimed her as her own. She'd registered the birth using her own name, forged the hospital records through her doctor, created an entire paper trail that proved the child was hers. It should have worked perfectly, but Vivian hadn't accounted for the bond. Hadn't realized that a baby might recognize her real mother's scent, her heartbeat, her voice. Hadn't considered that biology might be stronger than paperwork. Now, 3 days later, the baby wouldn't stop crying except in Sarah's arms. And Marcus was starting to notice. Mrs. Ashford? Jennifer knocked again. The photographer is ready. Vivian took a breath, composed herself, and stood. She walked to the nursery where she found Sarah in the rocking chair, the baby sleeping peacefully against her chest. I need her for photos, Vivian said curtly. Sarah's eyes met hers, and for the first time, Vivian saw something besides fear in them. She saw hatred. She's sleeping, Sarah said quietly. Peacefully, for the first time all night. Please don't wake her. She's my daughter, Vivian hissed. Give her to me. Sarah stood slowly, cradling the baby protectively.
No.
The word hung in the air between them. Excuse me? Vivian's voice was dangerous. She needs to sleep. She's been through so much already. Crying for hours, being passed between strangers. Just let her rest for 1 more hour. Please. Vivian stepped forward, her voice dropping to a venomous whisper. Have you forgotten our agreement? Have you forgotten what happens if you displease me? Sarah's eyes filled with tears, but she didn't back down. I remember everything. I remember how you ripped her from my arms, how you threatened to destroy my life if I ever told the truth, how you forced me to pretend she isn't mine. Her voice broke. But she's sleeping, Mrs. Ashford. She's finally at peace. And I'm begging you, mother to mother, let her rest. The words, mother to mother, made Vivian's blood boil. You are not her mother. You're the help. You gave up any claim to her the moment you handed her over. I didn't hand her over, Sarah said, tears now flowing freely. You took her. You stole her from me. I saved you from a life of poverty and deportation. You destroyed my life. Sarah's voice rose, then immediately dropped as the baby stirred. She rocked gently, soothing her back to sleep. When she spoke again, her voice was barely a whisper. You took the only thing that ever mattered to me, the only person I've ever loved. And now you can't even hold her for 5 minutes without her crying. What kind of mother is that? Vivian's hand lashed out before she could think, striking Sarah across the face. The sound was sharp, shocking. Sarah stumbled slightly but didn't drop the baby. Her arms had automatically tightened protectively around the infant. Don't you ever question me again, Vivian said, her voice shaking with rage. Don't you ever forget your place. You're nothing. You're no one. And if you ever speak to me like that again, I will make good on every threat I've made. Do you understand? Sarah nodded, one hand pressed to her reddening cheek, the other still supporting the baby. Now give her to me. I have photographs to take. With trembling hands, Sarah transferred the sleeping infant to Vivian's arms. The moment the transfer was complete, the baby's face scrunched up, and she began to whimper. "Stop that," Vivian muttered, bouncing the baby awkwardly. The whimpers turned to cries. "Stop it right now." But the baby only cried harder, her small face turning red. From across the room, Sarah watched, her own body visibly tense with the effort of not reaching out, not taking her daughter back. "Fine," Vivian snapped. "You'll come to the photo session. You'll stay out of sight, but close enough that she can sense you or whatever it is that makes her behave for you." "Yes, ma'am," Sarah whispered. As they walked toward the living room where the photographer waited, Vivian held the screaming baby at arm's length, her disgust barely masked. Behind her, Sarah followed like a ghost, her eyes never leaving the child. The photo session was a nightmare. The baby cried through every setup. The photographer, patient at first, grew increasingly frustrated. Vivian's smile became more strained with each failed shot. "Perhaps if you held her closer?" the photographer suggested. "More naturally?" Vivian pulled the baby toward her chest, and the infant immediately began to wail louder, her small body arching away. From the corner where she'd been hidden, Sarah made a small, involuntary sound of distress. The baby's cries faltered. Her head turned toward the sound. What was that? Marcus's voice came from the doorway. He'd been watching, Vivian realized with growing dread. "Sarah, are you there?" "Yes, sir," Sarah said quietly, stepping slightly into view. The baby stopped crying the instant she saw Sarah. Her small arms reached out, grasping at the air between them. Marcus's eyes narrowed. He looked at his wife, at the baby, at Sarah, then back to his wife. "This is remarkable. Vivian, have you noticed that our daughter only stops crying when Sarah is near?" "Babies are unpredictable," Vivian said tightly. "She'll outgrow this phase." "Will she?" Marcus crossed his arms. "Because it's been 3 days and this isn't a phase, it's a pattern. A very specific pattern." "What are you implying, Marcus?" "I'm not implying anything. I'm observing. Our daughter cries constantly unless Sarah is holding her or nearby. You can't seem to comfort her. I can't comfort her. Trained nurses can't comfort her. Only Sarah. So what? Should we make the maid the primary caregiver?" Vivian's voice dripped with sarcasm. "Maybe we should," Marcus said quietly. The photographer cleared his throat uncomfortably. "Perhaps we should reschedule when the baby is more settled?" "No," Vivian said sharply. "We're doing this now." She turned back to the camera, forcing a smile, holding the screaming baby who wanted nothing to do with her. And all the while, she felt Sarah's eyes on her, watching, knowing, waiting. This couldn't continue. Sooner or later, Marcus would start asking real questions. Sooner or later, someone would see the truth written in the way the baby reached for Sarah, in the way Sarah looked at the child with a mother's love. Vivian would have to do something. She would have to either break Sarah's spirit completely or find a way to remove her from the house entirely. But as she looked at her husband's suspicious face, she realized with cold certainty that time was running out. The truth was like a living thing, growing stronger each day, fighting to break free. And Vivian wasn't sure how much longer she could keep it buried. The basement quarters were cold and sparse, nothing like the luxury of the floors above. Sarah sat on her narrow bed, her whole body shaking with suppressed sobs. She couldn't make noise, couldn't risk anyone hearing. It was 2 a.m. Upstairs, her daughter was crying again. Sarah could hear it through the walls, through the floors, through every barrier that separated them. The sound pierced straight through her heart. She pressed her hands over her ears, but it didn't help. A mother's ears could always find her baby's cry, no matter the distance. 7 days. It had been 7 days since Vivian had taken her daughter. 7 days of living in hell. Sarah looked down at her chest, at the wet spots forming on her nightshirt. Her milk had come in 2 days ago, right on schedule, but there was no baby to feed. The pain was excruciating, physical and emotional intertwined until she couldn't tell them apart. She'd tried everything to stop the milk production. Cold compresses, tight binding, medication the pharmacist had recommended. But her body didn't understand that her baby was gone. Her body kept preparing to nurture, to feed, to mother, preparing for a child she was forbidden to claim. Upstairs, the crying intensified. Sarah's whole body responded, her breasts aching, her arms feeling empty, her heart shattering into smaller and smaller pieces. She couldn't take it anymore. Quietly, she climbed the stairs from the basement to the main floor, then up to the 3rd floor where the nursery was. The night nurse had been dismissed hours ago. Mr. Ashford had decided that Sarah should handle the night feedings anyway, since she was the only one the baby would accept. The nursery door was ajar. Soft light spilled out. Inside, she could see the bassinet, could see her daughter's small form, arms and legs flailing in distress. Sarah slipped inside and closed the door behind her. "Shoo, baby girl," she whispered, approaching the bassinet. "Mama's here. Mama's here now." The moment she appeared in the baby's line of sight, the crying stopped. Those beautiful dark eyes, Sarah's eyes, locked onto her face. The tiny arms reached up. Sarah lifted her daughter, and the relief was overwhelming. The baby immediately nuzzled against her chest, rooting instinctively, seeking food. "I know, sweetheart," Sarah whispered, tears streaming down her face. "I know you're hungry. I have what you need." She settled into the rocking chair and began to nurse. The baby latched on immediately, drinking eagerly, and Sarah felt her entire body relax for the first time in days. The painful pressure in her breasts eased. The ache in her arms subsided. This was right. This was natural. This was what they were supposed to be doing. "My beautiful girl," Sarah murmured, stroking the baby's soft hair. "My precious daughter. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry I couldn't protect you." The baby's small hand wrapped around Sarah's finger, gripping tight even as she fed. "I carried you for 9 months. I felt every flutter, every kick. I talked to you every day, told you how much I loved you, how I couldn't wait to meet you." Sarah's voice broke. "And then you were here, and you were perfect. The most perfect thing I'd ever seen." She remembered the birth, alone in her small room, biting down on a towel to muffle her screams because she couldn't risk disturbing the household. The terror, the pain, the overwhelming relief when she'd finally heard that first cry. "I held you for 2 hours," Sarah whispered. "Just 2 hours. I counted your fingers and your toes. I memorized your face. I promised you that I would love you forever, that I would protect you, that I would never let anything hurt you." She'd failed. Within hours, Vivian had torn the baby from her arms. "I didn't know what to do," Sarah continued, rocking gently. "She said she'd take you away completely if I didn't cooperate. She said I'd never see you again. At least this way, I can be near you. At least this way, I can hold you sometimes." But it wasn't enough. It would never be enough. Sarah looked down at her daughter, now content and drowsy, milk-drunk and peaceful. This was their time, these stolen moments in the middle of the night when no one was watching, when she could pretend things were different. "I've been thinking," Sarah said softly, "about what to name you. Mrs. Ashford hasn't chosen one yet. I think she can't bear to, because that would make you real to her. But you need a name. Every baby needs a name." She traced the baby's tiny features with one finger, the button nose, the curved lips, the soft cheeks. I want to call you Amara. Do you know what that means? It means eternal in Igbo. It means something that lasts forever. Sarah's voice caught. Because even if they take everything else from us, even if we can never tell the truth, my love for you will be eternal. That will never change. Amara, she would call her daughter Amara in her heart, even if the world knew her by a different name. The baby had finished nursing and was falling asleep. Sarah held her against her shoulder, patting her back gently until she let out a tiny burp. Then she cradled her close, breathing in that sweet baby scent, trying to memorize every detail. I wish I could give you the world, Sarah whispered. I wish I could give you my name, my family, my history. I wish I could tell you about your grandmother, my mother, who was the strongest woman I ever knew. She raised 5 children by herself after my father died. She would have loved you so much. Sarah had left Nigeria 3 years ago, desperate for a better life, for opportunities. Her mother had sold everything to pay for Sarah's passage, had made Sarah promise to build something good in America. She died last year, Sarah said, fresh tears falling. And I couldn't even go home for the funeral because I couldn't afford the flight, couldn't risk losing my work visa. But she made me promise, Amara. She made me promise to be strong, to never give up, to fight for what matters. What mattered was this child, this precious life that Sarah had created. I don't know how to fight this, Sarah admitted. Mrs. Ashford holds all the power. She has money, lawyers, citizenship. She's white, wealthy, married to one of the most powerful men in New York. Who would believe me over her? Who would even listen? Amara stirred slightly, and Sarah adjusted her position, making sure the baby was comfortable. But I'm watching, sweetheart. I'm watching everything. Every time she refuses to hold you, every time she looks at you with resentment instead of love, every time she treats you like an inconvenience instead of a miracle, I'm documenting it in my mind. Someday, somehow, I'll find a way to prove the truth. The door opened suddenly. Sarah's heart stopped. She looked up, expecting Vivian, expecting fury and threats. But it was Marcus. He stood in the doorway, staring at them, at Sarah in the rocking chair, at the baby sleeping peacefully in her arms, at the obvious evidence of what had just occurred. How long have you been here? He asked quietly. I just arrived. She was crying and, how long have you been breastfeeding my daughter? Sarah's blood turned to ice. She hadn't realized her shirt was still unbuttoned, that the evidence was so clear. I'm sorry, she whispered. I'm so sorry. Please don't fire me. Please don't send me away. I'll stop, I promise, just please. Marcus held up a hand. Stop. Just stop. He crossed the room and sat heavily in the chair opposite her. He looked exhausted, confused, and something else, suspicious. My wife told me she was breastfeeding, he said slowly. She said that's why she needed so much privacy, so much time alone to recover. But I never actually saw her do it. And now I find you. Sarah couldn't speak, couldn't breathe. Marcus rubbed his face with both hands. Nothing about this makes sense. Vivian won't hold the baby. The baby only settles with you. And now this. He looked at Sarah directly. Tell me the truth. What's really going on here? This was it. The moment Sarah had been dreading and longing for in equal measure. The chance to tell the truth, to reclaim her daughter, or the moment that would destroy everything. I can't, Sarah whispered. Please don't ask me. Please. Why not? Because. Sarah looked down at Amara, at her beautiful sleeping face. Because if I tell you, I'll lose her forever. And I can't survive that. I can't. Marcus leaned forward, his voice urgent but not unkind. Sarah, if something wrong has happened, if someone has done something illegal or harmful, you need to tell me. I can help you. I can protect you. No one can protect me from this, Sarah said. I'm sorry, Mr. Ashford. I'm so sorry. But I can't tell you anything. They sat in silence for a long moment, the only sound Amara's soft breathing. Finally, Marcus spoke. You love her. It wasn't a question, but Sarah answered anyway. More than my own life.
Why?
She's not yours. You're just the maid. Sarah's tears fell faster now. Sometimes love doesn't follow the rules, sir. Sometimes love just is. Marcus studied her face for a long moment. Then he stood. I'm going to find out the truth, Sarah. Something is very wrong here, and I'm going to discover what it is. Please, Sarah begged. Please just let it be. Please don't dig into this. I can't. She's my daughter. I need to know why she only wants you, why you're the one nursing her, why my wife acts like the baby is a stranger to her. He walked to the door, then paused. For what it's worth, I can see that you care for her. Genuinely care for her. And right now, that's worth more to me than anything else. After he left, Sarah held Amara closer, her whole body trembling. Everything was about to change. Marcus was going to investigate, and once he started pulling threads, the whole lie would unravel. Sarah didn't know whether to feel terrified or hopeful. Whatever happens, she whispered to her sleeping daughter, I want you to know that I tried. I try to protect you, to stay close to you, to love you the only way they'd let me. And if we're separated, if this all falls apart, I'll spend the rest of my life trying to find my way back to you. She kissed Amara's forehead, breathing in her scent one more time. You are my daughter. You always will be. No matter what papers they sign, no matter what name they give you, no matter how they try to erase me from your life, you came from my body, from my heart, from my soul. And nothing on this earth can change that. The night stretched on. Sarah stayed in the rocking chair, holding her daughter, knowing that morning would bring consequences she couldn't predict. But for now, in this moment, they had each other. And for now, that was enough. Marcus Ashford hadn't built a billion-dollar empire by ignoring his instincts. And right now, every instinct he had was screaming that something was profoundly wrong. He sat in his home office, staring at his daughter's birth certificate on the computer screen. Everything looked legitimate. Hospital name, doctor's signature, his wife's name as the mother, the date, the time. All perfect. Too perfect. He picked up his phone and dialed his head of security. David, I need you to do something discreet for me. Of course, Mr. Ashford. I need you to verify some hospital records. My daughter's birth. I want to see the actual hospital documentation, security footage from that day, everything. There was a pause. Sir, is there a problem? I don't know yet. That's what I'm trying to find out. Marcus hung up and opened his laptop. For the next 3 hours, he dove deep into a rabbit hole that grew more disturbing with each discovery. First, he looked at the dates. Vivian had claimed to deliver while he was in Singapore. But when he cross-referenced her credit card statements from that week, there were no medical charges, no hospital admissions, no doctor's fees. Instead, there were charges to high-end restaurants, luxury boutiques, a spa. The charges stopped abruptly 2 days before his return, then resumed with a single massive payment to Dr. Raymond Chen, Vivian's private physician, a man known among New York's elite for his discretion and willingness to bend rules for the right price. Marcus's stomach churned. Next, he looked at Sarah's employment records. She'd been hired 2 years ago, her work visa sponsored by Vivian personally. She'd been 8 months pregnant when Marcus stopped. He pulled up the exact dates. Sarah had given birth 2 days before Vivian claimed to have given birth to their daughter. 2 days. His hands were shaking now. He opened his photo library and scrolled through pictures from the past few months. There, a photo from a charity gala 4 months ago. Vivian was there in a tight cocktail dress, her stomach completely flat. She'd claimed to be 5 months pregnant at that point. He found another photo from 6 months ago. Another fitted dress, another flat stomach. Either his wife had the most invisible pregnancy in history, or... No, Marcus whispered to himself. No, that's impossible. But was it? Was it really impossible? He thought about the way Vivian had avoided holding the baby, the way she'd claimed to be recovering from delivery, but showed no physical signs of having given birth. The way she dismissed nurses, avoided doctors, refused to breastfeed. He thought about Sarah's reaction when she'd first held the baby, those immediate tears, that visceral emotion. The way the infant had stopped crying the instant she was in Sarah's arms. The way he'd found Sarah breastfeeding his daughter last night, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. His phone buzzed. David, his head of security. Sir, I've reviewed the hospital records. There's a problem. Marcus's heart was pounding. What kind of problem? The hospital has no record of Vivian Ashford being admitted on the date listed on the birth certificate. In fact, they have no record of her being admitted at any point in the last year. The room spun. Marcus gripped his desk. What about Dr. Chin? He submitted the birth certificate directly. Claimed it was a home birth with complications, which is why there's no hospital record. But sir... David hesitated. Dr. Chin has been flagged multiple times by medical boards for filing fraudulent documents. He's still licensed, but barely. And his patient list is basically a who's who of people trying to hide things, affairs, drug problems, illegal procedures. Marcus ended the call. His mind was racing, puzzle pieces clicking into place to form a picture so horrifying he could barely comprehend it. His wife hadn't given birth to their daughter, but someone had. Someone who lived in their house. Someone who had been pregnant at exactly the right time. Someone whose baby had been born just days before Vivian suddenly appeared with an infant. Sarah. The baby was Sarah's. Marcus stood abruptly, his chair flying backward. He felt sick, furious, betrayed, but also something else. A strange sort of relief because finally things made sense. He needed proof. Real proof. But more importantly, he needed to talk to Sarah. He found her in the kitchen, preparing bottles even though he now understood she'd been nursing the baby herself. She looked up when he entered, and he saw fear flash across her face. Mr. Ashford, come with me.
Now.
We need to talk. He led her to his office and closed the door. Sarah stood near the wall, trembling, her arms wrapped around herself protectively. I'm going to ask you a question, Marcus said, his voice carefully controlled. And I need you to understand that I'm not angry at you. I'm not going to fire you or deport you or harm you in any way. But I need the truth. Do you understand? Sarah nodded, tears already forming in her eyes. Is the baby yours? The question hung in the air. Sarah's face crumpled, and she made a sound like a wounded animal. She slid down the wall until she was sitting on the floor, her whole body racked with sobs. That was all the answer Marcus needed. Tell me everything, he said quietly, sitting on the floor across from her. Tell me what my wife did to you. And Sarah told him. Through broken sobs, she explained everything. The birth, Vivian's threats, the impossible choice, the 7 days of agony watching her daughter being claimed by someone else. With each word, Marcus's fury grew. Not at Sarah, but at Vivian. At the woman he'd married, who he thought he knew. She said I could stay close to her if I gave her up, Sarah cried. She said if I refused, she'd have me deported and my daughter would go into foster care. I'd never see her again. At least this way, I get to hold her sometimes. I get to see her grow up. But, Mr. Ashford, I'm dying. Every day, I'm dying a little more. She's my baby. She's my whole world. Marcus felt something break inside his chest. Why didn't you tell me? When I came back, why didn't you say something? Because I thought you might be part of it. I thought you might have known, might have agreed to it. And even if you didn't, you love your wife. You'd choose her side. Why would you believe the maid over your own wife? Because, Marcus said, his voice rough with emotion, I can see the truth. I saw it the first time you held her. I saw it in the way she calms for you, and only you. I saw it last night when you were nursing her. He ran his hands through his hair. My God, Sarah. My wife stole your baby. She stole your child and made you watch while she claimed her as her own. Sarah nodded, unable to speak. Marcus stood and pulled out his phone. This ends now. Today. I'm calling my lawyers. I'm calling the police. No. Sarah scrambled to her feet. Please no. If you do that, what happens to the baby? They'll take her away from both of us while they investigate. She'll be put in foster care or with strangers. Please, Mr. Ashford, I can't bear that. I can't bear the thought of her with strangers, confused and scared. Marcus stopped. She was right. If he went to the authorities now, his daughter, Sarah's daughter, would be the one who suffered most. Then what do you want me to do? He asked. Sarah wiped her eyes. I want my daughter back. I want to be her mother, legally and openly. But I want to do it in a way that doesn't traumatize her, that doesn't rip her away from the only home she's known. She's 7 days old. This is the only home she's known. Then we have to be smart about this. We have to build a case, get legal custody transferred properly. And we have to protect her through all of it. Marcus looked at this young woman, this mother, who had endured unimaginable cruelty and was still putting her daughter first. He felt a respect for her that he'd never felt for anyone else. Okay, he said. We'll do this, right? But Sarah, you need to understand something. That baby isn't mine biologically, but she's become mine emotionally. I've bonded with her too. When this is over, when you have legal custody, I want to be part of her life still. As her father, if you'll let me. Sarah's eyes widened. You'd want that? Even knowing she's not yours? DNA doesn't make a father, Marcus said. Love does. Care does. Being there does. And I want to be there for her. For both of you. For the first time since the nightmare began, Sarah smiled. It was small and fragile, but it was real. She'd be lucky to have you as her father. The office door burst open. Vivian stood there, her face pale with rage. What the hell is going on here? She demanded. Marcus, why are you closeted in here with the maid? Marcus turned to his wife, and she must have seen something in his expression because she took a step back. I know, he said simply. I know everything, Vivian. Vivian's mask slipped. For just a second, Marcus saw raw panic. Then she recovered, drawing herself up. I don't know what she's told you, but she didn't tell me anything. I figured it out myself. Marcus's voice was ice. You didn't give birth to our daughter. You lost your pregnancy, probably through your own negligence, and instead of telling me the truth, you stole Sarah's baby. That's insane. I've seen the hospital records, or rather, the lack of them. I've seen the credit card statements. I've talked to people who saw you in tight dresses when you claimed to be 6 months pregnant. Marcus stepped toward her. You committed fraud, Vivian. You falsified birth certificates. You coerced and threatened an employee. You stole a child. Vivian's composure cracked completely. She gave her to me willingly, after you threatened to have her deported and take her baby away permanently. Marcus's voice rose. You exploited a vulnerable woman. You used your power and privilege to rip a newborn from her mother's arms. I did what I had to do. Vivian screamed. I lost my baby. I was devastated. And she was just the maid. She had nothing, she was nothing. That baby deserved better than to grow up in poverty, raised by some immigrant with no education, no future. That baby deserved to be with her mother, Marcus roared. Her real mother, who loves her more than you ever could. Vivian's eyes were wild now. You can't prove anything. The birth certificate has my name. The records show. Fraudulent records. Created by a corrupt doctor. It'll take one DNA test, Vivian. One test, and your entire lie comes crashing down. Vivian looked between Marcus and Sarah, and then she did something that shocked them both. She laughed.
Fine, she said.
Fine. Take the brat. I never wanted her anyway. She did nothing but cry and demand and need. I'm glad to be rid of her. She looked at Sarah with pure venom. You can have your bastard back. Congratulations. I hope you enjoy raising her in poverty. She won't be in poverty, Marcus said quietly, because I'm going to support them. Both of them. Vivian's laugh died. What? You heard me. I'm going to make sure Sarah and her daughter have everything they need. Education, healthcare, housing, everything. You're choosing the maid over me? Over your wife. You're not going to be my wife much longer. I'm filing for divorce. And believe me, Vivian, when I'm done, you'll be lucky if you're not in prison. Vivian's face went through a dozen emotions: shock, rage, fear, calculation. Finally, she settled on cold hatred. You'll regret this, she hissed. I'll destroy you. I'll destroy both of you. No, Marcus said. You won't. Because if you try, I'll make sure every person in New York knows what you did. Every society paper, every news outlet, every social circle you care about will know that you stole a baby. Your reputation will be dust. He pulled out his phone. You have 1 hour to pack your things and leave this house. After that, you're trespassing. Vivian opened her mouth, closed it, then turned and stalked from the room. Marcus and Sarah stood in silence for a long moment. Is it really over? Sarah whispered. The worst part is, Marcus said. But there's still a lot to do. We need to file legal papers, establish your custody, sort out the birth certificate. It'll take time. But I'll get her back? Legally? You'll get her back, Marcus promised. Sarah's legs gave out, and she sank into a chair, sobbing with relief. Marcus put a hand on her shoulder. We're going to make this right, Sarah. I promise you. Your daughter will know who her real mother is. Amara, Sarah said through her tears. Her name is Amara. It means eternal. Marcus smiled. Amara. It's beautiful. It suits her. From upstairs, they heard the baby begin to cry. Go, Marcus said gently. Go to your daughter. Sarah ran from the room, her footsteps echoing through the house as she raced toward the nursery. Marcus followed more slowly, stopping in the doorway to watch. Sarah lifted Amara from the bassinet, and the baby immediately settled, nuzzling against her mother's chest. My baby, Sarah whispered, tears streaming down her face. My beautiful baby girl. Mama's here. Mama's never leaving again. Marcus watched them, this mother and daughter reunited, and felt his heart swell. This was what family looked like. Not wealth or status or bloodlines, but love. Pure, fierce, unbreakable love. And he would protect this family with everything he had. The next 3 weeks were a whirlwind of legal battles, paperwork, and emotional upheaval. But through it all, one thing remained constant. Amara was finally with her mother. Marcus had converted one of the guest suites on the second floor into a proper apartment for Sarah and the baby. It had a bedroom, a small living area, and a nursery that Sarah had decorated herself with soft yellows and greens. For the first time since Amara's birth, Sarah could hold her daughter whenever she wanted, feed her when she was hungry, soothe her when she cried, all without fear. But the legal situation was complicated. The problem, Marcus's attorney explained during a meeting in his office, is that legally, according to the birth certificate, Vivian is the mother. To change that, we need to prove fraud, which means going through the courts. It could take months. What about a DNA test? Marcus asked. That would prove Sarah is the biological mother. Yes, but we'd still need a court order to amend the birth certificate and establish legal custody. And Vivian could fight it. Sarah, sitting in the corner holding Amara, spoke up. Will she? Fight it, I mean? The attorney looked uncomfortable. She's already filed a countersuit claiming that you coerced her into taking the baby, that you convinced her it was abandoned. It's nonsense, but it'll drag things out. Sarah's face paled. She's trying to make me look like the criminal? She's trying to save herself, Marcus said grimly. But it won't work. We have too much evidence. Over the following days, they built their case. Dr. Chun, faced with the threat of losing his medical license permanently, agreed to testify that Vivian had paid him to falsify the birth certificate. Text messages were recovered showing Vivian's threats to Sarah. Hospital records proved Vivian had never been admitted for delivery. But Vivian fought back viciously. She hired the most expensive lawyers in New York, planted stories in society papers suggesting Sarah was a con artist trying to steal the Ashford heir, even filed a complaint with immigration claiming Sarah had violated her visa terms. Through it all, Sarah remained focused on Amara. She was a natural mother, patient, loving, intuitive. Marcus often found her in the nursery at odd hours, just holding her daughter, singing soft lullabies in Igbo, telling Amara stories about her grandmother and the family she'd left behind in Nigeria. You should bring them here, Marcus said one evening, standing in the nursery doorway. Sarah looked up, surprised. What? Your family. Your mother may be gone, but you said you have siblings, right? They should know their niece. Sarah's eyes filled with tears. Mr. Ashford, I can't afford. I can. And it's Marcus, please. We're family now, aren't we? Sarah looked down at Amara, then back at him. Are we? I keep waiting for you to change your mind, to realize this is all too complicated, to walk away. Marcus crossed the room and sat in the chair across from her. I'm not walking away. I meant what I said. I want to be Amara's father. Not biologically, but in every way that matters. Why? Sarah asked softly. She's not your daughter. Vivian destroyed your marriage. This whole situation has probably cost you millions in legal fees. Why are you still here? Marcus was quiet for a moment, watching Amara sleep in her mother's arms. Because the first time I held her, even when she was crying, even when I couldn't comfort her, I felt something shift in my chest. I felt love. Real love, not obligation or duty or pride, just love. He met Sarah's eyes. And when I found out the truth, when I realized what Vivian had done to you, I knew I had a choice. I could walk away and protect myself, or I could fight for what was right. Fighting was never a question. Sarah reached out and squeezed his hand. Thank you. For everything. The court date arrived in late February. It was a closed hearing, held privately to protect Amara's identity. Sarah sat at the plaintiff's table, her court-appointed lawyer beside her. Across the aisle, Vivian sat with her legal team, looking immaculate and cold. Marcus sat in the gallery right behind Sarah. He'd wanted to testify, to tell the judge everything he'd witnessed, but the lawyers had advised against it. As Vivian's soon-to-be ex-husband, his testimony might be seen as biased. The judge, a stern woman in her 60s named Justice Rivera, reviewed the case files with a grave expression. "This is one of the most disturbing cases I've encountered," she said. "Mrs. Ashford, you stand accused of falsifying birth records, coercing an employee, and essentially kidnapping a newborn child. How do you respond?" Vivian's lawyer stood. "Your Honor, my client maintains that Ms. Sarah Okafor offered her baby willingly, that this was essentially an informal adoption. An informal adoption requires consent forms, home studies, and legal oversight," Justice Rivera interrupted, "none of which occurred here. Furthermore, the evidence suggests Ms. Okafor was threatened and coerced. Dr. Chen's testimony alone is damning. Dr. Chen is trying to save his own license." Dr. Chen's testimony is corroborated by text messages, financial records, and the testimony of household staff who witnessed Mrs. Ashford's behavior. The judge looked at Vivian directly. "Did you, or did you not threaten Ms. Okafor with deportation if she didn't give you her baby?" Vivian's mask finally cracked. "I lost my child. I was desperate. She was just the maid. She had nothing to offer that baby. I could give her everything. Except the one thing every child needs most," Justice Rivera said coldly. "Her mother." The judge turned to Sarah. "Ms. Okafor, you've submitted DNA evidence proving biological maternity. You've provided testimony about the circumstances of the baby's birth and subsequent taking. Is there anything you'd like to add?" Sarah stood, her voice shaking but clear. "Your Honor, I just want my daughter back. Legally. Officially. I want to be her mother in every way. I know I don't have much to offer her materially. I'm a maid. I'm still on a work visa. I don't have wealth or status. But I love her more than anything in this world. I carried her. I birthed her, and having her taken from me nearly destroyed me. Please give her back to me." Justice Rivera's expression softened slightly. "Mr. Ashford has submitted an affidavit stating he intends to support you and the child. Is this correct?" "Yes, Your Honor. He's been incredibly kind. And what is the nature of your relationship with Mr. Ashford?" Sarah hesitated. He's been like a father to Amara. He wants to remain in her life, and I want that too. She deserves a father who loves her." The judge made several notes, then looked at both parties. "I'm making my ruling now. Based on the DNA evidence, the testimony, and the clear evidence of coercion, I'm voiding the original birth certificate and ordering a new one issued with Sarah Okafor listed as the mother. Full legal custody is granted to Ms. Okafor. Mrs. Ashford's parental rights, which were fraudulently obtained, are terminated." Sarah made a sound like a sob. Marcus leaned forward, putting a supportive hand on her shoulder. "Furthermore," Justice Rivera continued, "I'm referring this case to the District Attorney's Office for potential criminal charges against Mrs. Vivian Ashford for fraud, coercion, and child endangerment." Vivian's face went white. "As for you, Ms. Okafor, I'm granting you a temporary protective order against Mrs. Ashford. She is not to contact you or the child in any way." The judge paused. "I'm also going to make a recommendation to Immigration Services that your work visa be converted to a family-based visa with Mr. Ashford as your sponsor, given the unique circumstances of this case." Sarah couldn't hold back her tears anymore. She collapsed into her chair, sobbing with relief. The judge's gavel came down. "We're adjourned." Sarah turned and threw her arms around Marcus, who stood and held her as she cried. Across the aisle, Vivian stood rigidly, her lawyers whispering urgently to her. As they left the courtroom, Vivian's voice cut through the air. "You've ruined me, both of you." Marcus turned.
"No, Vivian."
"You ruined yourself." Outside the courthouse, Sarah stood in the February cold, holding the court order that gave her legal custody of her daughter. She read it over and over, as if she couldn't quite believe it was real. "It's over," Marcus said gently. "She's yours. legally and forever. Sarah looked up at him, her face radiant despite the tears. Can we go home? I want to hold her. I want to feed her and know that no one can take her from me ever again. Let's go home, Marcus agreed. Home. The word felt right. The penthouse wasn't just a workplace anymore. It was home for both of them. When they arrived, Sarah went straight to the nursery where the daytime nanny was watching Amara. The moment Sarah entered, the baby, now 1 month old, turned her head and made a happy gurgling sound. We did it, sweet girl, Sarah whispered, lifting her daughter into her arms. You're mine. Really, truly mine. And no one can ever change that. Amara grabbed Sarah's finger, as she always did, and Sarah felt her heart might burst from happiness. Marcus watched from the doorway, feeling a contentment he'd never known in his marriage to Vivian. This right here was what family should be. Not performance or obligation, but love in its purest form. Marcus. Sarah said, looking up. Would you like to hold her? He crossed the room and carefully took Amara in his arms. The baby looked up at him with those big dark eyes, Sarah's eyes, and smiled. It was probably just gas, but Marcus chose to believe it was recognition. Hello, sweetheart, he murmured. Your mama and I had quite an adventure today. But it's over now. You're safe. You're loved. And we're never letting you go. Sarah stood beside him, her hand on his arm, the three of them together in the soft afternoon light. This wasn't the family any of them had planned, but it was the family they'd chosen. And that made it perfect. 6 months had passed since the court ruling. The Manhattan penthouse had transformed from a cold showcase of wealth into a warm, lived-in home filled with baby giggles and lullabies in 2 languages. Marcus stood in the doorway of the nursery, watching Sarah rock 7-month-old Amara to sleep. The baby was bigger now, her personality blossoming. She had her mother's smile and her mother's spirit, fierce and loving in equal measure. She's getting so big, Marcus said softly. Sarah looked up and smiled. I know. Sometimes I look at her, and I can't believe she's the same tiny newborn who... Her voice trailed off. They didn't talk about those first 7 days often. The trauma was still too fresh, the memories too painful. But Sarah was healing, slowly, surrounded by love and security. The divorce from Vivian had been finalized 2 months ago. She'd avoided criminal charges by agreeing to a settlement that left her with almost nothing. The prenup Marcus's lawyers had insisted on years ago protected his assets, and the evidence of her fraud had killed any claim she might have made. Last Marcus heard, she'd moved to Los Angeles, desperate to escape the scandal that had destroyed her social standing in New York. He didn't care where she was as long as she stayed away from Sarah and Amara. I have something for you, Marcus said, pulling an envelope from his pocket. Sarah gently laid Amara in her crib, a beautiful white one that Marcus had custom-made, and crossed to him. What is it? Open it. Sarah pulled out the papers inside and gasped. These are adoption papers. If you'll have me, Marcus said quietly, I want to adopt Amara. I want to be her father legally, not just emotionally. I want my name on her birth certificate next to yours. Tears spilled down Sarah's cheeks. Marcus. You don't have to answer now. I know it's a big decision. I know you might want to wait, might want to find someone else someday, someone who... Sarah kissed him. It was soft and sweet and tasted like tears and joy. When she pulled back, she was smiling through her crying. Yes, she whispered. Yes, 1,000 times yes. Marcus pulled her close, his own eyes wet. I love you. I love both of you. I should have said it before, but... I love you too, Sarah said. I have for months. But I was afraid to say it, afraid you might think I was just grateful, or that I was trying to secure my position, or... Sarah. Marcus cupped her face in his hands. I know the difference between gratitude and love. This is love. Real love. They stood together in the soft glow of the nursery nightlight, holding each other as Amara slept peacefully nearby. I want to marry you, Marcus said. When you're ready. If you're ready. No pressure. No expectations. Just when it feels right. Sarah laughed, the sound pure joy. Ask me again in a few months. Let's take this one step at a time. First, make yourself her father. Then we'll talk about forever. This is already forever, Marcus said. This moment right here. The three of us. This is my forever. A soft cry came from the crib. Amara was stirring, not quite awake but fussy. Sarah moved to go to her, but Marcus gently stopped her. Let me, he said. He lifted Amara into his arms, and the baby immediately settled against his chest, her small hand gripping his shirt. Marcus swayed gently, humming a lullaby he'd learned from Sarah, an Igbo song about stars and dreams. Sarah watched them, her heart so full she thought it might overflow. This man, who could have walked away, who could have chosen the easy path, had instead chosen love.
Had chosen them.
My mother would have loved you, Sarah said softly. She always said the measure of a man wasn't in his wealth or his status, but in how he treated those who couldn't benefit him, in how he loved. Marcus looked at her over Amara's head. I wish I could have met her. In a way, you have. She's an Amara. Her strength, her spirit, her fierce heart. Every time our daughter laughs or fights sleep or refuses to give up on something, that's my mother. Amara had fallen back asleep. Marcus gently laid her in the crib, making sure her favorite blanket, a soft yellow one Sarah had brought from Nigeria, was tucked around her. I want to take you both to Nigeria, Marcus said as they left the nursery, leaving the door cracked so they could hear if Amara woke. I want Amara to know where she comes from, to meet her family there. Sarah's eyes widened. Really? You'd do that? Of course. She should know both sides of who she is, your heritage and mine. She should grow up proud of all the pieces that make her whole. They settled onto the living room couch, Sarah curled against Marcus's side. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows, the New York skyline glittered like scattered diamonds. Sometimes I can't believe this is real, Sarah admitted. Sometimes I wake up in the night afraid I'll find out it was all a dream, that I'm still in that basement room, that Amara is still. Shoo, Marcus soothed, pulling her closer. It's real. This is real. And I will spend every day for the rest of my life making sure you never doubt it. Sarah's phone buzzed. She glanced at it and smiled. It's my sister. She wants to video call. Answer it. I'll give you privacy.
No, stay.
I want you to meet her. Sarah answered the call, and a woman's face filled the screen. Older than Sarah, with the same warm eyes and beautiful smile. Sarah, there you are. And is that my niece? She's sleeping right now, but I'll wake her in a bit so you can see her. Chinyu, I want you to meet someone. This is Marcus. Marcus waved at the screen. It's wonderful to meet you. Chinyu's eyes went wide. This is him, the one you've been telling me about. Sarah blushed. Yes, this is him. Well, Marcus, my sister speaks very highly of you. She says you've been taking good care of her and little Amara. I'm trying, Marcus said sincerely. They're my whole world. Chinyu's expression softened. I can see that. Thank you for loving my sister. Thank you for fighting for her when she couldn't fight for herself. They talked for another hour about family, about Nigeria, about plans for Marcus and Sarah to visit next year. When they finally hung up, Sarah was glowing. She likes you, she said. I liked her too. Your whole family sounds wonderful.
They are.
And they're going to love Amara so much. Sarah paused. Marcus, can I ask you something? Anything. That first night, when you found me nursing Amara, when you started asking questions, what made you pursue the truth? You could have just fired me and walked away. It would have been easier. Marcus was quiet for a long moment, thinking back to that night. I saw the way you looked at her, he finally said. It wasn't the way someone looks at a stranger's child, or even a child they're fond of. It was the way my mother used to look at me, like I was her entire universe. Like she would burn down the world to protect me. He turned to face Sarah fully. And I realized that look couldn't be faked. That kind of love, that depth of feeling, it had to be real. It had to come from something deeper than employment or duty. So you knew, before I said anything, you knew she was mine. My heart knew. My brain just needed to catch up. A soft cry came from the nursery. Both of them smiled. My turn, Sarah said, standing. Marcus watched her go, this woman who had endured so much and come through it with her spirit intact, who had fought for her daughter with quiet courage, who had loved unconditionally even when she had every reason to hate. She returned a few minutes later with Amara, who was wide awake and babbling happily. Someone wants to say goodnight to Daddy, Sarah said, and Marcus's heart swelled at the word.
Daddy.
He took Amara, lifting her high and making her giggle. Hello, my sweet girl. Did you have a good nap? Amara grabbed his nose and squealed with delight. I think she's saying yes, Sarah laughed. They spent the next hour playing with Amara, peek-boo, tickles, reading board books with bright colors. And through it all, Marcus kept thinking about how close he'd come to missing this. How if he'd chosen to ignore his instincts, to accept the lie, he would have spent his life as a father to a child who didn't want him, married to a woman who didn't deserve him. Instead, he had this messy, imperfect, beautiful family. Bath time, Sarah announced, scooping up Amara. I'll get the towels, Marcus said. As he walked toward the linen closet, he passed the room that had been his and Vivian's bedroom. It had been completely redecorated, all traces of his ex-wife removed. Soon, it would be his and Sarah's room. They decided to wait until after the adoption was finalized, wanting to do things in the right order. But it would happen. He was certain of it. Later that night, after Amara had been bathed and fed and rocked to sleep once more, Marcus and Sarah stood together in the nursery doorway. I keep thinking about what she'll remember, Sarah said quietly. About those first 7 days. She won't remember them, Marcus assured her. She was too young. Her first memories will be of you, of love, of safety. I hope so. I hope she never knows what it feels like to be separated from someone she loves. Marcus pulled Sarah close, kissing the top of her head. We'll make sure she doesn't. We'll give her the most boring, normal, love-filled childhood imaginable. Sarah laughed softly. Growing up in a Manhattan penthouse with a billionaire father isn't exactly normal. You know what I mean. They stood in comfortable silence, watching their daughter sleep. Thank you, Sarah whispered, for choosing us, for fighting for us, for loving us. Thank you for letting me, Marcus replied, for trusting me with both of you, for giving me the greatest gift I've ever received, a family worth fighting for. Amara stirred slightly, making a small contented sound before settling deeper into sleep. In the soft glow of the nightlight, she looked peaceful, safe, loved. She would grow up knowing her mother's strength and her father's devotion. She would grow up understanding that family wasn't always about blood. Sometimes it was about choice, about love, about the people who showed up and stayed. She would grow up knowing that her first 7 days had been full of pain and confusion, but that pain had led to something beautiful. That sometimes the hardest beginnings led to the most extraordinary lives. And she would grow up loved, Fiercely, completely, eternally loved. Outside, the city that never slept continued its endless dance. But inside this nursery, time seemed to stand still. One mother, one father, one baby, three souls bound together by love stronger than any law, any paper, any obstacle that had tried to tear them apart. Sarah leaned her head on Marcus's shoulder. "I love you," she said. "I love you too," he replied. "Both of you. My whole world." And in that moment, everything was exactly as it should be. The baby girl who had only found peace in her mother's arms was home at last. And she would never be separated from that love again. Forever started now.